Good morning. Good to see you. We're continuing in our 1 Samuel series this morning. So if you've got a Bible, I'd love you to turn to 1 Samuel 17. If you haven't got a Bible, there's some on this table down here that you'd be very welcome to have. You can take that home with you as well, and you can continue reading. But as you turn to 1 Samuel 17, it's quite a long passage, so we're not going to read it, but I am going to try and make it kind of live a little bit for you this morning. That's the plan. If we haven't met, my name's Si. I'm one of the leaders here at Life Church. And if you were here last week and you were thinking, I'm sure he was here last week, you're going to be thinking the same next week as well. You've got me 3 times in a row. I know, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. But as we go to 1 Samuel 17, I want you to picture the scene. Okay, there's a version of the scene on the screen up here. The advisor walks into the king's tent in the valley of Elah, and the advisor says, "My lord, he's back again. This is and the king says, the 40th day." Yes, I know. 40 days. What is Goliath saying this time? Well, sir, I believe it was the same basic argument as the other day, but today's exact words were, "This is the day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man. Let us fight each other." And has anyone come forward? Of course they haven't. Even with the reward of no taxes for their family, and my own daughter given in marriage to them, the promise of great wealth and royal status, no man is willing. There's always tomorrow, I guess. This has been going on for 40 days. The conversation has been the best part of 6 weeks on the Israelite side of this valley in a place called Socher. And every day, this giant Philistine, Goliath, steps forward and hurls insults at the Israelite army, who are all gathered on the other side of this valley. They're lined up to fight, and every time Goliath says, "Who is going to fight me? Mano a mano," no one steps forward. In fact, no one advances, no one even retreats. They're just at a standoff. And in 1 Samuel 17, we see this incredible moment in Israel's history played out in this dramatic scene. It's possibly one of the most well-known stories that you can guarantee this is in every kid's Bible. This is one of the first ones when they go through the list of what should we include in the kids' Bible this time. This one goes in there, probably first. If you don't know this story, I'm going to spoil it for you now. David kills Goliath. I know. No one saw that coming. A single stone from his sling whips through the air, kills him, and he chops his head off, and the Israelites win a great victory. Thanks for listening. But today, I want us to see that there are more battles in this story that are going on with David than just simply David versus Goliath. And that like David, we too should have something bigger in view. The basic overview of the stuff you need to know as we approach this is this. Saul is king. He's been made king, but he has pretty consistently ignored what God has told him to do. He consistently kind of wants to do his own things in his own way. He's disobeying God. And as a result, he is not in his right mind. He is not a mentally well man. He is tormented. And then there's this young guy called David, who's probably about 17 to 19 years old, and he is a skilled musician. He plays the lyre, which is like a mini harp thing. And that helps Saul. That somehow brings Saul some peace and some comfort in his inner turmoil. Unbeknown to Saul, during this time, the very same David, the lyre boy, has been anointed king by Samuel because God has rejected Saul as king, and Samuel has now come and he said, "It's this guy." Not only that, but the Philistines have turned up again. They've got this giant on their side, and for 40 days he's been hurling abuse at the Israelites, and no one, including Saul, who should be the one that's ready to go and fight for the people, no one's up for the fight. This same Saul, who has been described elsewhere in the Bible as a head taller than anybody else. Sounds a bit like a giant, right? Like giant versus giant. This seems fair, but Saul's not up for it. He can't do it. He's literally been chosen because of his physical prowess to defend Israel, and he is cowering in his tent, having conversations with his advisor for 40 days. And then into this scene enters David. Now, you might have heard it said that Jesus is in every part of the Bible. right? Even the Old Testament, even though you kind of think, well, hold on, doesn't he turn up in the start of the Gospels? He's born there, I'm sure. Jesus is in every part of the Bible, and that's absolutely true, as we can see here. So if you're in 1 Samuel, turn to verse 17, it says this. Now Jesse said to his son David, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses. Cheeses, not Jesus. Jesus is still in every part of the Bible, but it's close enough, right? That was all just set up for that one terrible joke. But that is as bad as it gets. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. And so David arrives on the battlefield. Well, the non-battlefield, right? It's just two armies looking at each other. It's like every football match fight you've ever seen where they just square up to each other and do nothing. That is what is going on here. And he hears, as he's there, he hears Goliath's taunts echoing across from the other side of the valley. And says this, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? See, David is just a cheese delivery boy, but he's got bigger things in view. And his motivation is mixed. His first question is, what do I get out of this? What can I get if somebody does something about this? But more importantly, who does this guy think he is? Doesn't he know whose side we're on? Or maybe more accurately, doesn't he know who's on our side? That's David's first kind of thought. But this is where we get to the first of some battles that happen in this chapter. See, it's always just David versus Goliath, but there is more going on than that. The first battle is between David and Eliab, his brother. Now, I'm the youngest of three siblings. Both my older sisters moved out when I was about 14. So in their heads, I am still about 14. And roughly that maturity too. And in some ways, they treat me accordingly in family situations. And in some ways, it may well still be true, because I make jokes about cheeses and Jesus. But it's a bit like this with David and Eliab, right? For probably a few years now, David has been left to tend the sheep. He's been the family shepherd looking after their livelihood, whilst his older brothers have been off fighting Saul. David is the youngest of 8. The older 3 brothers are fighting for Saul. They're down here in the valley of Elah. And we see this in verse 28. Eliab comes to him, why have you come here? Sorry, Esther, that's not just because you've arrived. This is from the Bible. Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You only came down to watch the battle. And just hear the scorn in Eliab's tone, can't you? Now what have I done? Said David. Can't I even speak? And again, you can hear the younger brother in his tone as well, can't you? See, David's first battle in this moment is actually against all the assumptions that have been made about him. And isn't it true that actually for most of us, maybe for all of us, that it's often our family's view of who we are and what we're like that shapes most of how we view ourselves. We end up viewing ourselves as they view us. Maybe it was words that were spoken by a parent. Maybe it was just the constant jabs from a sibling, a family member that would always just put you down or always build you up. They just stick with us. And Eliab here dresses down David in front of all of the men. Why have you come down here? You don't belong here. Who do you think you are? Despite the fact that it is David who is bringing him the very food he needs to be doing the thing that he is doing. With whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? Eliab saying, what you do has no significance. A few sheep out in the middle of nowhere. Despite the fact that it's David's tending to the sheep that means there's cheese in the first place. It's his work that is actually bringing sustenance to his brothers. I know how conceited you are, how wicked your heart is, and you came down only to watch the battle. Eliab's saying, my assumptions of who you are and what you're like determine how you live. And I will always assume the worst of you. I don't know if that's been your experience. But it's despite this, only a few chapters ago, David has been described as a man after God's own heart. And here's his brother saying, I know how wicked your heart is. You see, friends, it can be one thing that God says of us, and then others say another thing, and we listen to that. And it is often our family. You see, how wrong could Eliab be? On all three counts here, there is some serious foreshadowing going on, though. Okay, that's what's kind of going on here. Why is he here? That's his first question. Why have you come down here? Well, only to go and defeat that giant that you're all afraid of. Those few sheep, well, they turn out to be the very proving ground that equip him to win the very battle he's about to fight, to set his brothers free from just cowering on the hillside. You only came to watch the battle? Well, actually, you're about to watch me win this thing. You see, there will always be Eliabs in your life. People who only see the problems. People who actually only see your flaws. People who will happily point out why something you think is a good idea definitely will not work. And Eliab's reaction to David is actually almost certainly one of his own projected feelings of rejection. See, just a few chapters ago, Samuel was choosing the next king. God has rejected Saul. He's spoken to Samuel to say, go and find the next king. Go to Jesse in Bethlehem, and I'm going to get the next king. So Samuel's already anointed Saul as king. He was the one that was ahead taller than everybody else. And so Jesse lines up his sons, and Eliab is first. Strong, big, handsome, firstborn. Obviously, it's going to be Eliab, right? But Samuel just walks past him. No, it's not him. No, not Abinadab. Not Shammah. Not any of the others. But is there any more? And then he brings David in from the field. Can you imagine the brothers watching that moment? As David treks in, this little boy with his lyre and, a sheep under one arm maybe. And Eliab's like, you've got to be kidding me. Him? I can imagine that hurt Eliab. So how do you deal with it when it's not you, but it's someone else? How do you deal with it when you're Eliab? When the job goes to the other person? When the love interest isn't interested? When the prospect falls through? When the plan we thought we had doesn't actually work? See, the default of our human heart is, even from our earliest days, that if I can't have it, well, you can't have it either. If I can't have that toy, I'm taking it off you and I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to wreck it. I'll burn this whole thing down. See, Eliab's public rejection of David is brutal. It's unkind and it's ungodly, but the reality is, I think often in these situations, aren't we more Eliab than we would like to admit? Aren't we the ones that will put somebody else down because we want to feel a bit bigger? Maybe you notice that in yourself. It's your past hurts, the rejections that you felt come out, and you end up hurting others. See, thankfully, David just kind of brushes it off because he's got bigger things in view. He's probably dealt with it most of his life. Maybe you have too. Maybe you're just used to it being the butt of the jokes. The one that gets a bit of a kick in. Well, maybe today is the day to let God just brush some of those family words and expectations off you. To have the hurt, maybe that rejection that you have felt, be healed. So that you no longer take it out on others. To have something bigger in view. You see, bigger than Eliab's words, the king himself, Saul, has heard that David's on the battlefield and he's been asking about this Goliath. He's asking about the Goliath deal that's on the table, the rewards that could be his. And that leads us then to our second battle, which is David versus Saul. I spent a long time faffing about with AI to get these pictures for you. I hope you appreciate it. So the advisor comes again to Saul, says, my lord, the lyre playing cheese delivery boy, he's in camp and there's a rumor he's asking about the reward for fighting the Philistine giant. David's here. Send him to me at once. But sire, this could be the answer to all of our problems. We send out the sheep boy. Goliath squashes him flat with one stomp. We retreat. We all go home. And everybody's happy. We'll just pay them off in some way. We'll just blame it on the foolish shepherd boy who wouldn't listen. That foolish shepherd boy is the only one who brings peace to my mind, says Saul. With his music, it feels like it's coming from God himself. Bring him to me. I'll convince him to go home. And so David rocks up in the tent, and if you're following along, we're in verse 32. He says, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine." You can just imagine him kind of looking down the valley. "This Philistine, your servant will go and fight him." He's talking about himself. Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man. He has been a warrior from his youth." Again, Saul only looks at what he knows of David, just the boy who plays the nice music. He looks at David's age and writes him off. And I think this applies at every age. If maybe you've graduated from uni and you're looking for jobs, it's like, yep, you're too young and too inexperienced. And then maybe when you get older in years, it's like, I'm afraid you're too old. We're looking for someone who's a bit more, with a bit more youth and up and coming. And then when you're somewhere in the middle, you're not young enough and exciting enough, or you're not old enough and experienced enough. It kind of happens at every age. We get written off in these things you can never win. But these battles, Eliab and Saul and even Goliath, are not where David proves himself. See, he's already won those battles. He's already got bigger things in view. You see, for years, David has been learning what it means to win battles, knowing that God is on your side. Verse 34. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Do you start to notice the recurring theme here? David's focus is not on the battle in front of him, but on the God he knows. He has something bigger in view. And so Saul relents and basically says, "Fine, go and fight. But here's how you do it." So Saul puts his armor on David. The armor that's been made for a man head and shoulders taller than everybody else, sort of sticks it on the little boy. And AI wouldn't do that for me. It kept saying that those pictures violated their community guidelines. I have no idea why. So his armor kind of fits. But it would have been too big for him. He couldn't handle it. So Saul puts his armor on David, and this young man is now drowned in the weight of another man's worries. That's what's going on here. You see, it can be like this for us as Christians. Maybe you experienced it when you came to faith. You put your faith in Jesus, and it was like, yeah, welcome to a life of freedom and faith. All you need is Jesus. Now, don't forget to read several chapters from the Bible every day. At least one from the Psalms, something from the New Testament, something from the Old Testament, maybe throw in a bit of a gospel too. Don't forget to pray for yourself, pray for your family, pray for your boss, pray for world leaders, pray for climate change, and remember in the process of doing that you are supposed to hear from God. Prayer is a two-way conversation. Don't forget to meet the needs of the poor and lonely. Listen to worship music in the car. Make sure you have an answer for everyone for the hope you have in Jesus. Discover your calling. Love everyone. And that's about that. So, how do you feel in your new freedom? Way down, right? David is fighting a battle. And to be in the battle, it can often feel like we just have so many other expectations on us. Maybe our attempts to try to dress up our faith with religious stuff that actually ends up keeping us from fighting the enemy that we are supposed to be in the battle with. We're just more worried about, am I wearing the right things? Have I got the right stuff? Am I looking like I know what I'm doing? We can be so weighed down by the things that either we put on ourselves or the things that others put on us, we can barely move. It doesn't feel like the freedom that Jesus promised us. See, friends, today is the day to throw off every weight that hinders you. To let God remind you of the freedom that he has won for you and to have bigger things in view. Bigger things than trying to look the part to people who are also just trying to look the part. To do what David says and go, I can't go in these. He said to Saul, I'm not used to them. And so he took them off. He took it off and went, no, I'm going to go as I am. So we come to the big battle, David versus Goliath. So like a night of boxing, we've had the undercard, we've had David versus Eliab, we've had David versus Saul, David versus the lion and the bear. And now we come to the main event, the heavyweight champion of the world, Goliath, and the shepherd boy, David. So in the red corner, representing the Philistine nation, weighing in with his bronze armor at around 250 kilograms, undefeated in 40 days and countless battles to date, standing somewhere between 7 and 9 feet tall with a spear the size of an Olympic barbell with a 7-kilogram weight on the end of it, sharpened and pointed into a spear, Goliath, the heavyweight champion of the world. You could have booed, but I'm fine with that. That's okay. And in the blue corner, representing the Israelite nation, the cowering Israelites, weighing in at probably 5'3" and about 19 years of age, with no armor, a shepherd's stick, a strap of leather, and 5 smooth stones in a pouch by his side. David, the featherweight, relying on God. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Fighters are in the ring. Let's get ready to rumble. Goliath advances towards David. He moves towards him. His shield bearer is in front of him. This basically human guy who's just going to go, I'm going to protect this guy, knowing that he is going to protect me. They are working together. So he just goes and positions the shield somewhere in front for Goliath to stand behind. And from behind his shield, Goliath catches a glimpse of this mighty warrior, the one from the Israelite nation whom they have chosen to send forth to face the mighty Goliath. And he nearly dies from laughter. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? The Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and wild animals. Despite the insults booming across this valley, as they had done for 40 days, David stands unmoved in the face of this battle. Despite standing across from the biggest human challenge he has ever encountered, David has something bigger in view. Verse 45. You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. Yes! Go on, David. David doubles down on Goliath's threat, that David is going to be fed to the birds and the wild animals. And he says, no, the entire Philistine army will be. He's basically saying, you are not even going to be buried. This was the ultimate insult in ancient warfare. It's absolute disgrace to just be left out in the open. None of the rest of your team were even left alive to be able to rescue you and take you home to be buried. So Goliath moves closer, getting ready to attack. And David, without breaking eye contact, just reaches into his pocket, finds the stone in his fingers that he has done 1,000 times before, places it into the sling, whirls it around as he has done many and many times. This sling that carries the memories of the lion and the bear that it has struck down, he whirls it around and with a dead-eye aim, like second nature, flings it through the air. See, so sure is he that the God who placed the very planet that is whirling around in our solar system in the very perfect place, that means we are not too close to the sun that we all burn to a crisp and not too far away that we all freeze and there was no life in the first place. So sure is he that this same God can direct the path of one little stone to exactly where it needs to go. He lets it go. And so the stone whistles through the sky. And before Goliath even has a chance to reach for all the many weapons that he possesses, the stone sinks into his forehead, right between his eyes. And under the weight of his heavy armor, the bronze helmet upon his head that proved futile, his body slumps to the ground, shakes the earth beneath the feet of this shield bearer who has already turned to run back to the rest of the army, who are all already turning and running. David, true to his word, strides forward into the middle of the battlefield. The 4 remaining stones jingling in his pouch before realizing he's going to have to summon the strength to lift this giant's sword. And we're told a really unusual detail about Goliath, and particularly his armor. We're told that he wears scale armor. So this lyre-playing, humble shepherd stands over this scale-covered beast that has loomed over the story of the people of God for 40 days. The same number of days that has always signified trial and temptation and challenge before a great victory won by God. This sacrificial lamb protector sent out to almost certain death stands victorious over the serpent. This scale-covered thing that looms over the people. And he is about to crush the head. This new king. So David heaves Goliath's sword. And the very thing that was supposed to strike him down is brought down upon the neck of the enemy. And it elevates David to reward and royal status. See, even though Goliath was enormous, David had something bigger in view. And even in this moment, David still has something bigger in view. Because you see, the real battle that is going on throughout all of this has nothing to do with giants or Philistines. The battle is in the heart of the people of God. That's the reality this morning. There's an excellent commentary on Samuel that puts it like this: Goliath is not really the problem here. A leather strap and a little rock can fix him. The real menacing giant in this story is the unbelief that dominates the hearts of God's people. The obstacle is not found in God. It is not found in God's opponents. It is found in God's own people. I suspect God was more insulted by Israel's disbelief than he was by Goliath's blatant, blasphemous defiance. We should expect Goliath to respond the way he does. But the people of God should know better. See, these stories are not in the Bible so that you and I can leave this morning feeling like we should try a little bit harder and be a bit more like David. No, they are here to remind us that God is far more powerful than you could ever believe. The question is not who or what the battle is against, but who is fighting for you? Who is on your side? In Ephesians 6, Paul puts it like this: we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. We don't wrestle against the thing that is in your life right now, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Friends, it is not your difficult boss that is your actual problem. It's not your ex. It's not your horrible neighbor. It's not the government. It wasn't about how big and horrible Goliath was. It was about how big and powerful God was in David's view. David had something bigger in view. How big is your view of God? Have you made him into the thing that you carry around with you? Or have you made him the one that goes before you in battle? See, Goliath had to fall. And it may be that there are some real challenges that you're facing in your life that also must fall. You may win some. You may not. The Bible isn't just one continuous story of God fighting every single battle for his people. He is fighting the battle for their hearts. But this morning, God is inviting you to bring him into the battle, to bring him into what life actually looks like. Maybe it's fears that every day step forward and tell you, you can't. They boom across the valley as soon as you open your eyes. You can't do it today. Maybe it's insecurities that keep you hiding in your tent like Saul. Maybe it's an addiction that just every single moment tells you, you are stuck here forever. It's not even worth trying. Maybe it's something about who you are, the way you see yourself, the identity that you believe that tells you you're different. You will never measure up. Maybe it is your past hurts and they haunt you and they tell you you don't even belong in the battle. Maybe it's health issues that loom over you and tell you this is the end for you. Give up. Whatever it is that feels like a giant in your life, it will not be your ability to fight it that wins the battle. For the Lord says, not with sword and spear. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand. See, friends, Goliath has fallen. Sin and death and all of their vile companions in our lives have been defeated through the shepherd king, Jesus' death and his resurrection. In Colossians 2:15, it says it like this: having disarmed the powers and authorities, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. Jesus has done it on the cross. And it's like this moment where David stands with Goliath slumped on the floor. Already dead, but the victory not yet completely done. We stand in that moment. And Jesus stands with you in that moment over the dead carcass of all the things that scare you, all the things that hold you back, all the things that stop you from living your life in the way that he has already won for you. And we live in that moment between the stone sunk into the forehead, the death blow, and the final bringing together of all things when the head is finally chopped off. The victory is won, but the enemy is still lurking nearby. We live in this now and the not yet, where we know Jesus is the victor, but we're not quite over the line in terms of the whole battle. We feel the battle still. So picture it like that. Jesus has struck the death blow to the hold of sin that is over you, and soon enough he will chop the head off and he will bring all things to an end. He will make all things new. But for now, while you stand in that moment, knowing that he has won the battle and he will win and consummate all things, look to him. Have someone bigger in view. Fix your eyes on the champion of heaven. Fix your eyes on the greater David, Christus Victor, the all-conquering king, and take heart. Can I invite the band to come up? Friends, I'm going to pray in a moment. And as I do, I want to invite you to step forward to the battle line, to take a stand against whatever it is that is dominating your life. Whatever it is that is holding you back from believing that the battle is the Lord's and that he will give it into your hand. So I'm going to pray, and as I pray, I'm going to invite you, as the band start to play, to just come and step down into this area over here. This is the Valley of Elah this morning. And we're going to do battle, knowing that the battle is already won. So basically, you're stepping into the victory parade because Jesus has won. And there's going to be some folk down here who would love to pray with you. If you want to bring someone down who you want to pray with you, that's fine. You don't have to stand there alone like David with just a little sling. It's okay. But don't sit in your tent like Saul. Don't just stay where you are and hope it goes away. Step forward. If you've had enough of whatever Goliath is telling you what to do, telling you that your God isn't big enough, come down here and deal with it. And the band are going to lead us in a song declaring the power in Jesus. So why don't we stand together for a moment.